afternoon. This is your man who did it this time, coming at you with another episode to What Does the NBA Stand For? And on this specific episode, we are going to concentrate on two different eras. An era of gladiators and an era of quitters. Now, this first era starts from the mid-90s, and they just walked away maybe in your 2018, 2020, I'll stretch it. So, we want to be very fair when we talk about this era. We're talking about your Dirk Nowitzkis. We're talking about your Kobe Bryants, your Tim Duncans, Paul Pierce, Rasheed Wallace, Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, Allen Iverson, Ray Allen, Marcus Camby. Obviously, then you had your LeBrons. You had Carmelo Anthony. You had Darren Williams, Carlos Boozer, Dwayne Wade. The list goes on, man. Chris Paul and them guys. Now, as the 90s came to a close and this new jack swing of the early 2000s came in with your headbands, braids, not to say that I didn't have them, because I did. I dressed like that era. Now looking in hindsight, man, we was very excessive with the baggy jeans and the bling bling era. There was a shift change. Maybe it was the money that these young kids were making. You know, I'm not picking on these guys, but, you know, your Darius Miles, Eddie Currys, Joseph Fortes, they were being fattened up by these sports agents and these sports talk shows and these guys who were basketball gurus. They knew it all. The talent pool started to get younger, but weaker. The mentality. We started to see rule changes, the hand check leaving. After the Malice of the Palace, referees were quicker with the whistle when it came to physicality. If you don't know, let one of your elders or one of your old heads educate you. It wasn't quite the bad boy era in the early 90s, late 80s with the Knicks and the Bulls rivalries or those Miami Heat years with the Knicks. But it started to get crazier with the whistles being blown so fast because they wanted to protect their product. Why protect one Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird when you can have 16, 17? How many men have came into the NBA from the mid-90s to maybe a couple years ago where you're calling these guys the next Larry Bird, which is truly just, we're looking for the next great white hype. And we're not even talking about your foreigners like a Dirk or now Luka. We're talking about your Keith Van Horns. We're talking about your Jimmer Fredettes. We're talking about your Gugliotta, who played for the Timberwolves. Trust and believe, whenever there was a so-called white man that came up through the college system and he could shoot the lights out like an Adam Morrison, JJ Redick, they couldn't wait to promote this guy as the next best thing. But the NBA started to get weaker. And whenever these agents are fattening these guys up, the agents start to quit on their talent. And lo and behold, some of these players, at least in the beginning stages of the thinking process, started to say, man, these coaches and these businesses and these teams and these owners are making a lot of money. Hey, let's start really looking into this free agency thing and starting to team up. And those of you all who are conscious never really got into the demonization of looking at all these guys as quitters yet, okay? But then once, I'd say, obviously the decision helped to make that. And even before LeBron, we saw that KG and Ray Allen, who were not in their prime anymore, they had just kind of got out of their physical prime, but they were still in their mental primes. KG and Ray ended up going to the Boston Celtics, which, you know, to LeBron's credit, he saw that he couldn't win, and then he teamed up with top 10 guys at the time, or at least top 15, that being Wade and Bosh, and, you know, then that whole shebang where they underachieved. But you still had that era of guys who were gladiators, your Tim Duncans. And, you know, what's really crazy is it's not an age thing. Like, I don't want people to look at it as, are you saying that those guys didn't have that quitter's mentality? We'll get to that, because Shaquille O'Neal, Charles at one time, there are some of these old heads that's on television that are trying to change the narrative like they wasn't part of the spark plug of this, you know, ring chasing. Like, no, it's been happening. It's just there's a whole era now. Well, then post 2013, pardon me, you started to have the conversation about mental well-being, mental health, which is a serious topic. But these young boys started to take advantage of it. You started to see men taking time off for their woman having babies. You started to see men taking personal days like they're working in a factory, or they're television experts, or, you know, for, you know, the doctor world. You started to see people who took a personal day because their headspace needed to be clear. And God forbid that any man or woman challenge them like, well, what qualifies this person to take a personal day when they're dribbling the ball, going up and down the court, and they're being paid more than your doctor, your teacher, your guy who might be running his own little corner store? We don't want to get into those semantics where basically what we're doing is calling out their weakness. So then you had your Ben Simmons come in a couple years later. He's supposed to be the next big thing. You had your Kyrie Irving, who, you know, was a little unsettled here recently with the staged event that happened down at the Capitol. You had, you know, all these guys, you know, who seem to display a weakness in their mental. Talking about James Harden, who's been team hopping when things don't go his way. Obviously, we can't run from it. I think he's the best player, and he's been the best player the last couple of years, but obviously you have the Kevin Durant situation, where though he made a business decision to go to Golden State, I think he let his emotions and he let the media deter him off another greater path to push him to Brooklyn. You have now where they're trying to pretty much promote Zion Williamson, and who I think is the next big star coming up. What's the young man's name? Ja Morant, where they're trying to suck him out of the Memphis market. You just pay attention. But again, it's not an age thing, because Giannis is part of the New Jacks. He's in this era of quitters, but he beat the system. He bucked the system. Whether you like it or not, do I believe that if Kevin Durant's toe doesn't come over the three-point line, and if James Harden was healthy and all this, you know, hypotheticals, of course, I believe the Brooklyn Nets would have been your 2021 champions. But that did not happen. So then you have this year, LeBron James is leading a lynch mob trying to go back to another organization. He's throwing people under the bus. Anthony Davis, who is another part of that era of quitters. What does the NBA stand for? When are the people, the fans, going to say enough is enough? Maybe this product of players needs to see some pushback. And I don't mean the pandemic. Maybe some of them stands where the cameras are filling up trying to put your favorite star with a little kid wearing their jersey, maybe that needs to be pushed back a little bit, and we need to talk to the real fans in the streets. Your real Philadelphia 76er fans, your real New Orleans Pelican fans, your real Washington Wizard fans, and Laker fans, and Clipper fans. We just see a whole era of quitters, man. I dig Kawhi Leonard on the court. I think he's a great two-way player. You have to start to question what's really going on in my man's psyche. Do I think he has a deteriorating knee injury? Me having one myself personally, I can never judge that man. But I am telling you that there is a shift change. And there's more men that come from the era of quitters. This is why the product is so whack. And a lot of us can't wait till April and May where we just ready to see the gauntlet known as the NBA playoffs. Because as far as it comes with this regular season stuff, it's no better than your local afternoon soap opera what the old heads used to watch. Ben Simmons, we pray that you're telling the truth, but there's something that says I'm a little apprehensive to your truth telling. You've been off all these months and you're out of shape or you're out of mental shape. Era of quitters. Anthony Davis, every time you get a nick or bruise, you're quitting. Zion, we don't know that man's ins and outs was going in his mouth, pause, food-wise. But we have to start to question, like, what's the deal, man? You get paid to play. Luka Doncic, every time we turn around, they're trying to figure out ways to insert different pieces. They done got rid of, Porzingis, another era of quitting. You could look at it as their job. They do what they're supposed to do and they're supposed to play with the pieces they have, but they're not. And when they don't get their way, we see them in suits and ties or we see them in their regular street clothes. And you start to question, what's going on? He took a personal day. You didn't see that pre-95, 94. You did see guys who were disgruntled with their organizations. Dennis Rodman and such with the Spurs. And then, he went on that sabbatical low-key with the whole Bulls situation. Nothing's new under the sun. We know that. But the numbers are rising for athletes, specifically in the NBA, where they're quitting. They're quitting mentally. They're not focused. They're more focused on the check and their brand and their TikTok accounts. Because it's happening in all major sports, but what does this NBA stand for? And where am I going with this? If they continue to promote quitting, it's a microcosm of society, of parenting specifically. Maybe James Harrison, who used to play for the Steelers, was on to something where everybody shouldn't get trophies. I agree. Everyone shouldn't be held with the same standards of being called the next LeBron James. Is that a compliment? Is that a compliment? What does it mean to really be a GOAT at this point? Dummy, the acronym stands for greatest of all time. Yeah, so it says these millennials and the people that are Generation Z or whatever. Or is it just a freaking title like everything else? Where is the action of a greatest of all time or a so-called GOAT? Where is the kingship, the real kingship? It is part of being isolated, making tough decisions. Heavy's the head that wears the crown, except for these new jacks. You get called a GOAT because you average triple doubles where there's no big men. What does this NBA stand for? I'm confused. An era of quitting? Now, we're going to sum it up because I know that this is turning into a rant, and that is what we do not want to hear. But looking forward, question yourself. After 2 years, we're calling these kids the GOAT. But then the moment that there is adversity or any type of conflict knocking at their door, they flee. An era of quitters, man. Now you already know who I think led in this charge of quitting, playing no defense, only playing for stats, triple doubles. If we come at LeBron, we got to come at his branches under him. Harden, Russ, Luka, Jason Tatum to a certain degree. The numbers are gaudy. The production is terrible. Love Kyrie on the court. Kevin Durant as well. Is this an era of quitters? And if this era is an era of quitters, all we can do is hope that Giannis, maybe Joker, and it's sad to say some of these foreign ball players, which used to be an eye-opener conversation for me as a black man here in America, maybe some of these foreign boys is going to bring in a new wave of how you play sports and how you compete. Message. This is your man who did it this time, coming at you with another episode of What Does the NBA Stand For? Be wise, be well, be blessed. I'm out.